MEF, GTS, and the Taj Hotel for a lovely afternoon today. Want to welcome all my panelists out here. A lot of them old colleagues, old customers, old relationships, and really happy to be talking to you. I'd request each one of you to give a brief introduction to yourself, about yourself, your company, and let's go around before we start. Priyank, over to you.
Hi all. Thank you GTS, MEF to create a wonderful platform to begin with and bringing MEF to India. I'm Priyank Patel. We started Vasudev in 2011, so almost 12 years. We are mainly on voice, SMS, and now domestic enterprise, WhatsApp for business and RCS. We have been growing, and it's the team of Vasudev which has been bringing us so far. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. First of all, thanks all of you for coming. I am Ashutosh. I started my career in the IT space. I used to work for a company called Fujitsu IKEM. And then in 2007, I switched domain to telecom. And I liked it so much that I stayed back. And in 2019, I moved to Globe Teleservices. I head the sales for international messaging at GTS.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Muktesh Narula. I work with Pinnacle Teleservices. We were founded in 2003. I've been associated with company since 2010. So it's been a 12 years long journey, and we are mainly focused on our SMS traffic in India. Thank you.
Good afternoon all. My name is Shan Gupta. I'm Associate Director with Tata Communications, looking after the A2P SMS and voice for APAC and MEA region. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Vikas Goyal. I've recently joined Gupshup as a Senior Director Telco Relationship. But prior to that, I was in telco space for good about 20 odd years or so. I've been associated with telecom for last 1990 onwards or so. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, MEF and GTS. I'm Ravi Shankar. I put up around 35 years of service in telecom, the technocrat as well as in business development. So most of my life, actually, I was with VSNL, but Tata Communications. Then subsequently, I was with Dialog Asiata. Then now I'm actually with Asiata Group headquarters as a head of strategic alliances and international voice for the Asiata Group. Thanks, Chris.
As James introduced, I'll be brief. Chris Almeida, Chief Revenue Officer, Global Messaging Services, a Switzerland-based headquartered company, and now with a global presence. Glad to be here. Thank you. So welcome all of you, and lovely to kick off this discussion. As you know, the topic is the new role of mobile operators. And a regulatory paper in 2018 actually defined the role of the mobile operator as one who is the watchdog for checking and making sure that the right messages come in on the domestic and the international. But I'm sure the MNOs play a much larger role than just being a watchdog to look at the messages coming in. The messaging industry has been growing. There are many numbers out there, but I think if you look at 60 billion in 2021, growing to 75 billion by 26, it's a huge number. And India is also following suit with our huge population and huge business community. So what are your views on the A2P India messaging industry? How do you think the MNOs have geared up for it? Are the enterprise matured on this media? What are the use cases that you see for domestic, international? Just what is the role that the OTTs can play and do play? Just your thoughts on the India A2P messaging. We'll go around and I'll ask everyone to give us their view.
I can only give from international perspective.
I think in India or global perspective, MNOs play a larger role because it starts with being a backbone for the industry. They know the customer, they know what customer is, who is, where he is, and what he is doing. They have all the data, and then messaging is part of backend or as the data side. They play a larger role, and in India, I think they have created a very strong ecosystem. The SMS has flourished. When it has increased as a spamming or other activities, they have acted upon it to control it. So they are playing a very significant and strong role in it. So far, I have seen that they are still have not gone greedy and have tried to reach out to enterprises directly. So they have supported the ecosystem where there is an aggregator, there is an integrator, there is a backbone provider themselves. So yes, I would say they are playing a strong role here.
Well, I remember, in 2008, I think it was around that time, when we made purchases, and Vikas was in Tata Teleservices. So, 100 TPS used to suffice for the entire month for the kind of volumes we had then. And today, that industry in 12 years has grown to in the India volume is, I think, close to 5 billion. Or, no, it's much more. It's 40, I'm sorry, 40 billion plus. And the international messages terminating to India is about a little more than 1 billion. So that's how much it's grown. And I think the next phase of A2P should come from IoT, because the use cases have all, I think, been tried and tested. So I think IoT will probably drive the next phase of A2P.
Yes, so Chris, I think future for A2P messaging is great, and we're going to grow for sure. And as far as OTT players are concerned, so they have really shown possibility of two-way communication, which is great. I think people have been looking for that. The enterprise really want that. And traffic is certainly going to grow. So we are pretty hopeful and look forward to it.
So I don't think so. There's two thoughts about it, that messaging in India is growing at a very rapid pace. Enterprises these days are banking more on SMS. Why? Because number one, they generate leads. B, they increase sales. And C, they give a better customer experience. So therefore, it's a revenue for both enterprise and for the MNOs. Why MNOs is because, or the aggregators in middle, is because all this communication needs to happen digitally. And digital communication, the CPaaS and the aggregators need to come up with their expertise to the enterprises, and MNO need to extend their arm for the infrastructure. So it's an end-to-end revenue generating activity for all three players in the market. Now, with COVID-19, the customer behavior changed very drastically. They want to do everything sitting at home. They want to interact with the enterprises sitting at home. For this, a digital DNA is required for a seamless communication. And for this, there needs to be a complete end-to-end plan for the communication to go from one leg to the other. Regulators on the other end are also helping all three segments of this entire ecosystem, be it from the DND or DLT implementation. The implementation of it can be a separate topic altogether, but there is a conscious efforts from the regulators as well to grow the business. So yes, 1.7% of the entire revenue of MNO comes from this segment, and out of which 92% is from A2P alone. So yes, there's a huge scope. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll pick the thread from what Ashutosh was talking. I think in 2007, we were pushing about 1 billion messages a month, A2P messages. Now today we are at 40 billion. We were selling at about 2 paisa. Now we're selling at, now we are procuring at 12 paisa. So market has actually increased multifold over here. But having said that, I think there's enough headroom to grow more over here, because there are more and more use cases which are coming up as far as A2P messages are concerned. I remember doing comparison between what India and other countries were doing. we are far behind Philippines and Indonesia in terms of A2P messages. So there are enough headroom in terms of increasing the business.
Yeah. So while other panelists have given India perspective, Chris, please allow me to say from international perspective, because I did not work with any mobile operator in India, but for a long time I've been working for international operators. Definitely A2P messaging has come as a God-sent gift to MNOs as well as the carriers, aggregators. As the voice minutes are dwindling, A2P is actually is the savior for the industry. We need to protect it, and we need to nurture it, and we also should ensure that, of course, Chris definitely will speak more about that and other points, that how to, means let us not be too much greedy in this process of what you call making short-term gains, but let us be a long-term player. So that's
Excellent. So when we talk about the MNOs and their role in the messaging system, the ecosystem, we cannot ignore the other various stakeholders in the entire ecosystem. So we have, of course, the MNOs. We also have the aggregators or the CPaaS players and the enterprise as three stakeholders. And each of them really have their own value in the entire chain. So the question here is for us to be candid and discuss, do these three stakeholders have a conflict of interest? Is it possible for them to collaborate together in order to actually grow the industry and value for each other? And can the OTTs and the MNOs and the enterprise collaborate for a win-win in the business? I throw this to, well, Ishan, Muktesh, like to get your views on this.
Thank you, Chris. And a part of it I did talk in the first segment, but then like I said, enterprises now have to go digital. And to do this, they require definitely the expertise of aggregators or CPaaS providers, and they require the infrastructure of MNO. Now, if I typically talk about, on a very layman term, a CPaaS solution, then the first layer, or you can say the networking layer, is where the MNOs need to get in and provide their services, be it from long code, short codes, or any SIP trunk, and so on and so forth. On top of which, the aggregators need to provide their expertise or solutions to the enterprises, be it in the form of CRM, by using solutions like voice, SMS, and email. So all these things definitely do help enterprises reach their customers more efficiently. And this is what is the key, wherein the customer and the enterprise, if they have a seamless communication, the customer will definitely be engaged to a brand, an enterprise, and for which the revenue will then flow, and the enterprises will then realize that investing in such digital infrastructure is actually making sense for both the parties. So yes, MNOs and CPaaS providers will also make money, and enterprises will also make money. Thank you.
Yes, so I agree with Ishan. There is no conflict of interest as such. This is what I feel, but definitely the telcos do try and approach the enterprises directly also, but it's not really a complaint. So like Ishan said, we prepare solutions for enterprises and we try and provide them the best possible services. I guess telcos should trust the aggregators and collaborate and do business together.
All right, so no conflict of interest, but there are some little areas where we may be stepping on each other's toes.
They are definitely there, and it's nothing new.
Nothing new, and we need to manage it.
Yes.
All right. So an extension to the same conversation, I've heard different opinions when I talk to each of the stakeholders. The MNO says, I have invested CapEx, and I have some of my colleagues, I don't know, Dwarka, if you're here, and Ravi, as in MNO side. I've invested cost of acquiring a customer, I own the customer, and therefore I must get the giant share of the revenue. the enterprise says, I'm actually spending my advertising budget and my offering to the customer is what is creating revenue for you. So I must have low cost. You are like one television or a portal media channel to me. And maybe that's a worth debate also. And the CPaaS or the aggregators, which most of us on this dais are, believe that we are the glue that brings these two units together. We are the people that brings the enterprise to the MNO. We build global networks. We developed omni-channel solutions. So if these are the roles, well, tell me, where do you agree or disagree on the roles that someone plays, all three play, and how should the revenues really ideally be shared in percentage? You know, what percentage revenues or cost reductions for the enterprise? Any views on that?
I can have two, please allow me to have two opinions about this. One as an MNO, the other one is as a industry expert, or industry, what they call professional rather. I don't want to call myself expert. See, definitely the MNO says that customer is owned by me. We invested in the capex. So definitely you should get it, a good amount of share, which is already getting it. But I respect and I value this entire chain of what you call enterprise, aggregators, and MNOs. MNOs on their own cannot bring the A2P messages because their sales, what you call arms, are limited. They're limited to their respective markets, and what you call their reach is relatively less comparing with the aggregators. So MNOs should respect aggregators, and at the same time, aggregators are wholesale players. So from the percentage of revenue share point of view, Chris, they should not aim higher percentage because they play with the volumes. So the percentage of share may be less, but they equally make good amount of money. Of course, enterprise is the man who is actually man who is paying to both MNO as well as to the aggregators. So we should respect the sensitivities, and we should ensure that he is not forced to go out of this A2P approach to access his customer. So we have to ensure that he is not actually heavily taxed, and a well-balanced approach is there so that the entire chain actually is protected. Thanks.
Thank you. Actually, I'd like to go back and say that we have not kept the customer at the centerpiece. Let's look at the customer. The customer wants to have some communication coming in from his enterprise. Earlier, it was in form of postcards, letters, etc., or a physical visit. Now, what has happened with A2P coming in, the cost of reaching the customer has gone down substantially. So enterprise is valuing, the value which enterprise is creating is actually tremendous. And hence, there should not be any challenge in terms of what value is the aggregator or the CPaaS player delivering to them. Because in any case, to reach to those customers, the cost of reaching is very, very high in any other format. So I don't think that's the key issue. The key issue is that are they adjacent? Are they complementary to each other? And I think they are complementary because telecom operators or MNOs will never be able to innovate as much as CPaaS players will be innovating it. And also CPaaS players are not the aggregators. They are creating a layer of application on top of it. So hence there is far more value rather than wholesaling the product and then further selling it to the enterprise. That's my view.
Yeah, I think it's unlike any traditional ecosystem. There is a factory who produces thing. He has invested heavily in infrastructure. Then there is a distribution network which carries those load of reaching out to the last mile, and then there is a consumer. It's a traditional like any other business. So I personally would look at in a different way. I will check whether all the offering at the end is affordable to the consumer. If it is like supply creates demand. When the supply is abundance, affordability is there, customer starts using, he has different use cases, he wants to send alert when my shoe is broken. Now for that, MNOs cannot have resources to work on that technology solution. So there is CPaaS solution which creates multiple applications or use cases. So they are there, they give a lot of energy behind it, and they make a little more on that. And then comes on the back end side where telcos, they earn fraction of it. Even if these people are not there, the investment was sitting there lying. So if they are earning more on a fraction and multiple integrators, multiple use cases, I think if I am MNO, I would play a catalyst role. Someone has used somewhere in north, I will bring that solution that why don't you use in south? If someone has done something in south, I'll take it to the east. So they coexist. If someone thinks that I am the one running the show, I think he is fool. It's ecosystem, it's like sea, everybody is there and each and everyone is part of the food chain.
Excellently said. So everybody is part of the food chain. Yeah, Ashutosh, go ahead.
There's something like, my point of view is, see, the origination of these messages, how does it happen? An enterprise has a problem, and that has to be solved, and that's mostly solved through the software, right? The enterprise business problem is, there's a software that solves the problem, and the software is what generates these messages. And that's the value the aggregators, bring to the table. So they take, of course, they ride on the operator network, and therefore I think they are value creators, and they should have their fair share. And they're the ones who created this whole industry, I mean, the ecosystem, and therefore collaboration is inevitable, and that is the way to go forward.
Collaboration is inevitable. That's a lovely message I think we take from this question. We all the categories, stakeholders have to. Changing gears a bit, we have the former chairman of BSNL in the room, sir, so asking this question makes me nervous with you in the room. I'd request you to also chip in on an answer if you can. Just talking on regulation. I can't have a conversation on India market without talking about the regulator and the DOT. The IUC charges for A2P, the international part has been left to forbearance. The regulator in the papers have said that they believe the cost is so low that led them to say sender keeps all, bill and keep. And the cost is determined as 1 paisa, 2 paisa by the regulator. But no intervention in the international A2P side. Globally also, I see a very mixed pattern in regulators intervening in industry. The US doesn't regulate message. Most other countries also have stayed out of international regulation. LATAM region, a lot of countries actually support the domestic so much that they prohibit the international from higher cost. So the question here to the panel and whoever would like to answer, Muktesh, maybe you or Vikas, anyone. What do you think in the Indian regulation can be tweaked to help the industry grow more? What are the slight little changes or improvements that could be done in IUC regulation or other parts of DLT and other regulations?
To my knowledge, I think it's no more bill and keep. So the operators are now paying, at least for A2P messaging, I know for sure. That's the IUC charge. 7 paisa, yes. No. It's the money is exchanging the hands now. That's what I know now. Yes. So about making money, I'll come back to the previous question. Then, like we all concluded that all three stakeholders are important to run this business. So the enterprise has to realize that they pay a cost which gives value to the service, and the operator and the aggregator make a fair share out of it. I mean, none of the two has to be greedy. That's important. This is what I feel.
I'll add to it that there has to be a regulatory intervention, and I think industry should insist regulatory intervention. The reason is that to monetize, the term widely used lately for A2P and CPaaS market, everybody wants to monetize it, and it's fair enough. You want to stop unfair usages. At the very same time, when I am indirectly holding monopoly, I get greedy. That happens with all monarchy, and then they lost monarchy. The same is happening that if you get greedy, you jack up the price and you see, 3 times profit I have done, but you have killed the market. Alternate sources have been increased. Why? Because you forced the customer that it is no longer affordability, it is beyond their expense, and then they will say that this has to be done. It's no doing, and then they look for an alternate. So intervention has to be there, and it has to be somewhere close in voice. It is working well, and same can happen in any other industry. Government's role is to govern, and if they decide this is something fair and industry accepts it, it stops people's greed. And when people's greed has been stopped, and that's where MRP comes into the picture. In Indian market, there is minimum retail price for a lot of products, and that helps that, even producer wants to charge higher. He doesn't charge higher unless government has something to it. So I would say their intervention has to be there.
So I've seen this market from 2007, and there was a time that this market was not regulated, and the prices were also not regulated. And we reached out to all aggregators and saying that, why don't you regulate yourself? There should be a self-regulation going on. But it never happened. Till the time TRI intervened and the regulation happened, and then suddenly everything has fallen on the right track. So in my opinion, regulation is good for the industry. It helps us keep the order intact, and the chaos doesn't come in. If there's no regulation, the chaos will set in immediately. Over to you, sir.
So any comments from you?
No, but I mean, regulation has to be there, but it has to be very soft touch regulation. So, and as you all are aware that TRI has got very elaborate procedure for issuing regulation, They will upload the consultation paper, they will hold n number of open house sessions and all that. So I fully agree that regulation is essential in this particular scenario where there are multiple stakeholders, multiple operators. But the regulation has to be soft touch. Like, wires, you see that, over a period of time, wires IUC for landline to mobile, mobile to mobile, ultimately, slowly it has become now 0. So for messaging that international component, I don't think regulator can do anything. They just cannot do anything in the international portion. However, for local portion, they are reducing the charges. Still some charges are there, and I think time will very soon come that it will follow the same suit as voice.
Interesting, excellent. I think the message is that regulation is essential, but it must move along with the industry to grow the industry and not be restrictive. So excellent, thank you. Changing gears, again, I think the A2P messaging industry has really gone through a huge amount of product innovation, technological innovation, and this has really been stemmed from, in some ways, growing cost. As somebody used the word monetize, as MNOs started putting good firewalls and protecting their networks, then they need to monetize, prices go up, the enterprise then starts bleeding on his budgets, and this has prompted a huge amount of product innovation for authentication. And I heard the security and fraud comments also. Now we can see that, we've all heard of flash calls, robocalls, Microsoft authentication, in-app push, or even biometric authentication or IP authentication. A lot of new technology is being worked on. So will these authentication methods impact the A2P industry? Will they cannibalize the messaging revenues and volumes? How will it impact the A2P industry? Ishan?
So Chris, authentication industry, or rather authenticated apps, they will take over SMS industry. That's inevitable, but that's not happening soon. This industry right now is somewhere around $8 billion, and it is expected to be around $18 billion by 2025. Why authentication apps are taking over is, number one, they are SIM hacking. There are SIM cloning. And of course, there is very human behavior when a cell phone is lost or stolen. There are a lot of apps which a smartphone has which can be easily hacked. So therefore, these apps are trying to get into the market and take over A2P industry. But we need to realize one thing, that all the enterprises, they still feel that two-factor authentication over SMS is still a more user-friendly. The humans have adapted easily to it. And number three, if I talk specifically about India, India infrastructure needs to be way more advanced as far as digitization is concerned, because as on date, there are still many cities which do not have a well completed infrastructure to support this. I was reading very recently on 26th of March, TRI had released a paper wherein they planned to go, or rather locating buildings and areas which still require communication infrastructure for them to be at par with the other cities. So till that happens, I think SMS industry is safe. But then definitely we need to be cautious about those apps coming into the market.
So here's what, I mean, the financial transactions are required to send an OTP to a subscriber. Now, record keeping happens at the operator end, whereas apps will not be able to comply to that particular part. So as fintech is moving more and more digital, I think this market is going to grow, whereas other OTP authentication, which is non-fintech, possibly will go through the app. That's what my view.
I think, again, I'll use the term greed and monetization here. Typical case for larger enterprises, companies, when they reach a size, most of the companies, A2P is a cost, is not revenue generated. So when in the name of monetization, when prices increases, adoption towards these new technologies or solutions is increasing. One more reason is that it's cheaper to integrate, it's easier and quicker to integrate, and less number of intervention. There is no CPaaS provider coming into the picture, there is no telco pricing coming into the picture, there is no DLT registration. So it's easy to adapt, and it is going to be part of transition from A2P to certain level of 2FA or the verification transaction. It's going to happen. Even if they monetize it, then it may not happen faster, but if they get greedy and jack up the prices at a certain level, then it will push those larger enterprises. And once they move, the smaller people know that now this is easy to use. Why don't I move there? So it is happening, and one has to control. I think it merely comes on a price point of sight. On a larger company, it is also as security point of sight as well.
So the innovations that happen in authentication will allow the A2P industry to coexist and grow. That's the larger message we take from this. Good, interesting. Any other views? You're closer, Muktesh, to the enterprise. Do you see innovation coming about in terms of authentication?
Yes, so like Priyank Bhai said, it's more about the cost of the SMS. So when people or the enterprise realizes that I'm paying extra cost for this authentication, they look for the alternatives. So probably if we keep that in check, they might exist simultaneously.
As a mobile operator, of course, we don't want this one to, what you call, cannibalize our A2P revenues, the innovation, etc. But the only thing is, who is contributing to this innovation, who is triggering, who is actually the catalyst for innovation, that we should actually think of it. Means if delivery is not assured by aggregators, or the mobile operator actually, because of some COVID issue or because of some industry issue, or maybe their investment, to recover their investment, if they actually increase the prices too much, then actually the enterprises will be forced to think in that direction. So it is our responsibility to maintain a very balanced approach, so that while we welcome the innovation as well as a consumer, as a citizen, but also we should be conscious about our own interests, our stakeholders' interests, and ensure that the balanced approach is there, so that innovation actually completely take over. See, these A2P calls, WhatsApp calls, Viber calls, now completely eradicated international voice termination calls. So the companies which were making huge amount of money, they're big losers now. They don't have that revenue stream. So this is the time actually we have to be ensure that this A2P messaging actually is protected and the revenues are protected.
Lovely.
So, if you look at the core of the problem, it's, maybe an application like WhatsApp. They're providing basic mobile services, right? In a way, they're doing everything that the operator is supposed to do, providing voice services and then messaging services, and it's free. They don't pay much. And at the core of this problem of why, message prices are, jacked up and, all this, is because of this. And I really don't know why they're not regulated or treated as an MVNO, because they're riding on an operator's network and cannibalizing the operator's revenue. And which is why the operator tries, whatever way he has of monetizing his network, at least for the usage. And this is the core of the whole problem.
So the point you raised, why are OTT players not regulated in countries, is a 20-year-old debate.
Okay.
Started with voice. No countries, including the US, have been successful in that. So I think that will carry on at least in my lifetime.
I'll just add on to what I have discussed. I'll just compare the two scenarios of how it is impacting. In India, government's mandate is there that every transaction for banking financials, they have to send OTP or SMS for each transactions. And that's why one of the largest client for A2P is banking sectors or financial sectors. Same was happening in Singapore. We have a subsidiary there and global business has been doing from there. DBS was sending a good number of SMSs. We were happy. Every time I used to get an SMS, I was happy. Why? Because the part of that money was coming to my industry. So I'm a survivor. Citibank was sending an SMS. I was happy that someone in my industry is earning out of it. I was happy. Now, zero. They have, like Citibank, they have moved an alternate solution. SafeNet, DBS, they have moved their own internal token systems. So I was lucky enough to speak to someone on a DBS side on a higher end, and I said, SMS was very good. What happened? And he said that it was expensive. It was huge cost for us, and while we were paying for that, we wanted to secure, which was served by these applications which we have been using. So it saves a lot of expenses for us. So it's coming. If I say that those apps will not add value or will not flourish, it's coming. We have to accept. A2P was not there. It came. It reached somewhere. Companies have to transform. Telcos have to transform. We have to accept. It's part of the system and it will come. As long as we keep our relevance with volume, with price, with use cases, we will still be there. But then transformation is coming.
Very good point, Priyank. Companies have to transform or die. You have to change along with time. We've talked a lot about WhatsApp, and that I would ask this last question. It was talked in one of the earlier panels also, and in today's newspaper. WhatsApp got 10 crore, an approval to have 10 crore, that's 100 million, user capacities, and this comes from the financial side. This has gone 10 times, so that means people are getting ready for WhatsApp. WhatsApp is well penetrated in India. There is a huge amount of transaction, WhatsApp Enterprise. They've changed their pricing model from notification-based to conversation-based. We heard that. So the question really is WhatsApp eating the MNO's lunch? Will this further growth of WhatsApp impact the MNO? Are the MNOs ready for it? Can these two people, WhatsApp and the MNOs, collaborate? What are your views on that? Muktesh.
I'll say WhatsApp is there, and I personally don't see WhatsApp as a competitor to A2P. I'm somewhere falling between CPaaS or integrator panel, whatever transformation phase we call ourselves. WhatsApp is not just a chat app. When we talk about the paid WhatsApp, they understood, as I said, supply creates demand. They understood that there is a volume, there is a requirement by enterprises. So instead of charging per transaction, they gave that 24 hours, I will not charge you, I will charge you just once. Once you have a ticket, you have unlimited pass. You keep talking, you keep chatting. They have created ecosystem which they knew that the new generation is a conversational generation, is a chat generation. If you go to any restaurant here in India, and youngsters are sitting, they are chatting. Even if while they are talking or speaking to someone, they are chatting on their phone. And that's the behavior they have understood. So the business is moving. They have created so many use cases which SMS cannot create. We have to accept that you will not buy sending text and receiving a text and sending text and receiving a text on SMS format. So they have created a new ecosystem where integrators can coexist and earn, and telco have to figure out how their data usage is increasing, definitely, but telco have to figure out how they can earn more out of it by collaborating it. By avoiding change is a challenge. So being part of that change, they can earn more, how they can collaborate on it.
Yeah. So nothing remains free forever. I mean, we all know WhatsApp has been free for last 10 years or so. And I think they started with the fact that they're going to charge $2 a year, and then they took off. So somewhere they'll start charging this. Obviously, there has to be a business model for WhatsApp as well. So nothing will remain free. But at the same time, what WhatsApp has done, a couple of other OTTs have done, they have removed the arbitrage which telcos were enjoying because of various reasons, inefficiencies. And now those arbitrages have been removed. Now telcos are far more efficient, because earlier, if you go out and you pay for roaming charges or international call, today you can make a call on WhatsApp without any charge. So these are the efficiencies which they have brought in, and also consumer is happy because there's a lot of value being given to consumer. So my sense is that WhatsApp will keep on pushing the telcos to be efficient and be innovative and up the ante, and that's the way the whole industry will move forward.
So Chris, I would just like to add one more point to what Vikas just mentioned, that MNOs also need to realize one thing, that they are sitting on a wealth of information which all, be it the WhatsApps or the enterprise, are constantly looking for. There are information about the subscribers. Now that is your key. Your customers are your subscribers of an MNO. Now, be it from the basic details of name, date of birth, or any other information which the subscriber has, becomes an integral part for verifying a key potential customer. So therefore, MNOs needs to capitalize on this information and see how best they can be beneficial to both the enterprises and the new ways of communication which WhatsApps are.
Excellent. I think we've come out to the end of time. So just to summarize, I think we all agreed that all the stakeholders in the ecosystem play a vital role. They all contribute, and there must be collaboration. There are points of time when there are conflicts, but they have to work together in order to make sure the industry progresses. Excellent. With that, thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Lovely discussion.
On behalf of the panelists, we thank our chair.